Humanity! I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I'm so Ray. Um, as you know, my videos are about love, infinity, creation, energy, because we're infinite love, we're infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who we are with the human race. So I want to make this video about this beautiful infinite virtuous cycle. It's a beautiful infinite virtuous cycle. Beautiful infinite virtuous cycle. It's just beautiful. It's this virtuous cycle of creator and creation. You know, creation creates creators, creators create creations. And this is a cycle that goes to infinity. It's an infinite virtuous cycle. It goes to infinity, okay? It goes to infinity, as all virtuous cycles. If there is a virtuous cycle, it goes to infinity. Why? Because of the nature of duality principles. Because it's part of our reality that we all belong to. This infinity. It's the nature of infinity. Okay, duality principles. So if you understand this notion, right, proto-meta systems, property analysis and what this means, telemetric thinking, so you understand that duality principles is fundamental because what you need to, right, self-reflection. So infinity is created as a result of that, this self-reinforcing mechanism. So there's the polarity right there, because when you have two, then you generate polarity, and from polarity comes electromagnetism, and from electromagnetism comes electrogravitics, telemetry, energy, singularity, right, spherical energy as a result. Okay, so then this is the start there then. So it's creator, creation, creation, creator, right? They come together. So it leads to this infinite virtuous cycle, right? It leads to an infinite, beautiful, infinite virtuous cycle of creation. It's just beautiful. It's wonderful, because creation creates creators and creators create creations. So you see, a creator creates to infinity, and the creation can also become a creator, because this is the case of us, right? This is our case. Okay, this is precisely what our case is. You know, the creator is infinite energy, infinite consciousness, infinite self-awareness, infinite love, right? This is what the creator is. The creator is light spherical energy. In our case, the sun created us, the central sun of the universe, of the cosmos, our sun. Our sun is the sons of suns. It's the central sun, it's the first sun. Infinity created this sun, okay? And this sun is the central sun of our universe, okay? So this is the central sun, the singularity, the first sun, the sun of suns, all right? The central sun of this universe is the central sun of the first galaxy at the epicenter of this universe. And this is us, humanity. Our planet, spaceship planet that we created, is tidal locked to the central sun of this universe, okay? To the central sun of this universe. And this is who we are. So this central sun created us, our species, an infinite number of cycles in the past. And our species is light spherical energy, light spherical beings, who we are, our nature, okay? And then we decided to get closer to the central sun, to evolve even higher to infinity, so we ourselves can become the creator. You see, this infinite duality principle of creator, creation, creation, creator. The creator creates creations, and the creation creates creators, because the creation becomes the creator, okay? And this is an infinite cycle, and this is the case because creation is a creator and the creator is creation, and vice versa. And it's just infinite duality principle, is infinite virtuous cycle of creation. And we were created by creation, but we evolved into the creator as a result, because with our consciousness and self-awareness, we can create. So essentially, a long time ago, our ancestors, in their infinite wisdom, created planet Earth to evolve even further. And we title locked it to the central sun of the universe, which was the central sun that created our species. Because our species is a central species. Why? Because we come from the epicenter of this universe. We were the first species to evolve into light spherical energy, light spherical beings. We became creators as a result, because we became conscious and self-aware of our nature, of who we were, our DNA structure. Why? Because we have an infinite number of cycles to evolve to infinity as a result of being at the epicenter of creation, the central sun that generated all the light, that created all the galaxies and everything around us, because we were the first. So we had an infinite number of cycles to evolve into this life form that we are, light spherical energy, light spherical beings, the human DNA, the human race. But we didn't come from Earth originally. We came from the periphery. We came from the proximity of the central sun, okay? But then we evolved into that, and then we became the central race of this universe, because we were the epicenter. Everyone came after us. We were the oldest, the most ancient species, the first species, the central species. So what happened is that our ancestors, everything is encoded in our DNA structure, everything. It's called DNA memories, and we all can tap into them. And the way we do that is by loving with all the highest energy, because love is the highest energy of creation. So as long as you love with all your heart and all your might, you reactivate your DNA structure, meaning your DNA memories, so you can access your past and who you are and everything, honor history as a species, okay? And also the future, because we are these. We're time and energy is part of our nature. So we can understand everything in the future infinitely, and in the past infinitely, and in the present here and now at this level of density, because of our consciousness and self-awareness. This is our nature as a species. This is who we are with the human race. Why? Because we're the central species. Why is this? Because we were the first species to become light spherical energy. So our ancestors, an infinite number of cycles ago, became masters of space and vacuum structure, space and vacuum. So they could tap into the filaments of creation, into the fabric of creation, the energy, harness the energy from the central sun, where we originated from, by tapping into the space and vacuum structure of it. And by doing so, we were able to generate singularities and spherical devices and singularity devices. And with these, we were able to generate enough energy to create galaxies ourselves. So we would generate the energy that would form as a result of a spherical vacuum threshold being met. And we would create galaxies ourselves. So all the life forms from those galaxies, essentially, would be created as a result of the density of the central singularity, the central sun at the epicenter of that galaxy, that we will create ourselves. Because we had an infinite number of cycles to evolve and understand the creation, creator itself, light spherical energy, our central sun. And because we were it, by being biological, the biological scale of it, because we evolve into light spherical energy, who we are. Why are we light spherical energy? Because of the human heartbeat, the pulse of life, the pulse of creation. Okay, so the human heart is the biological creator. Okay, the creator is essentially the enabler of our DNA structure. How come? Because the pulse of life, of the pulse of creation, the human heartbeat generates an electromagnetic field. This is light spherical energy. And the space structure of that is the human body. So we can have senses, intelligence, consciousness, self-awareness, sentience, everything who we are. And that leads to what? Our understanding of who we are. And this energy, and this light spherical energy at the epicenter, just like the central sun at the epicenter of the universe, is where all the energy comes from, right? It's the central point, it's the brightest point, it's the hottest point, it's the most energetically dense point. So from there, all light comes from, right? And all elements are created. So everything is the space vacuum structures of this tension of the sphere, meaning the space of the sphere within the sphere of our universe is filled and in the way of spherical vacuum thresholds. And these vacuum thresholds are essentially what originates into galaxies. So we learned this a long time ago, and we were able to do that ourselves. There was an infinite number of galaxies prior to us, so we learned from that. by observing how it worked, because we had an infinite number of cycles to evolve into understanding this with consciousness and self-awareness. And then ourselves started to make galaxies as a result of that. And we had very advanced technology. We could make planets, spaceship planets, and we would have light spherical spaceships that we would immediately move across infinity, the universe, instantly, everywhere we wanted, because we were the central space. From the epicenter, you can go everywhere faster. No matter where it is, you can go anywhere. So essentially, this is what we would do as a species. And because we had an infinite number of cycles to evolve into that, because everything came after us, you see, because it's the central energy, because we were so close to the proximity. But we got very bored pretty much of just creating galaxies and things. We wanted to tap into a higher energy level, because we knew that we could evolve into infinity even further, because we knew that the concepts of infinity already. We knew that infinity equals 0 at that stage. But we couldn't be infinity ourselves. We could only harness the energy from the central sun and make galaxies, just like replicating, mimicking what the sun would do. We would do it ourselves with our technologies. And we encoded our technologies in our DNA. Because with our thoughts and consciousness, we would use and manipulate our technologies, our light spherical energy spaceships, our planet making, building technologies, our galaxy singularity technologies that will manifest make these singularities that would form into universes, into galaxies. So you see, this is our nature. This is what we do, and it would be faster because we could decentralize it, and with our thoughts and consciousness, just make it happen without us having to do the work ourselves. Just with our thoughts and consciousness and our spherical technology, we just do the rest. And the only way to interface with our thoughts and intelligence and consciousness and self-awareness with these devices was to encode it into our DNA. So by encoding this DNA technology within our DNA, essentially we could interface with it. So we did this an infinite number of cycles ago. But then in our infinite wisdom, our ancestors in this case, our heritage and legacy, they immediately realized that there was something higher, because they already knew that infinity equals 0 because of the singularity and the mathematics of it, which, by the way, I have provided the proof already to the world. So essentially what happened is that they wanted to evolve even further, because we didn't really have a species that was more ancient than us, because we were at the epicenter of this universe, or that anything that would be more advanced than us or equal to us in status and intelligence, consciousness, and self-awareness. We were the central species, you see. Creation becomes creators, right? This infinite cycle, this virtuous cycle of infinity. So essentially what we decided to do was, our ancestors decided to create a planet, and this planet is called planet Earth, and obviously encode our DNA in it so we can inhabit it. So the way it would work is that they knew that even though they came from the periphery of the central sun, but not from Earth, because Earth was manufactured by us. We built it, we created it, we made it. So essentially what happened is that they knew that we were the most advanced, and we came from the periphery of the central sun, further out than where Earth is located right now, right? But we knew that if we got closer to the central sun and we would spend a long time there, our DNA structure would evolve higher, because we will be closer to the central source. So our DNA makeup would essentially go even further. So in that way, we'll be able to become conscious and self-aware enough to understand beyond our understanding, so we can go to other universes. Because we understood at this stage, we understood that there was only one universe, because we couldn't just be one, because that energy from the central sun was being tapped from somewhere else, and this somewhere else was infinity itself, this tension on the surface of the bigger sphere that is creating an infinite number of infinites because of its own singularity of creation of infinity. And when that space structure is filled, it just like light from the sun creates the elements and the light that moves across and creates galaxies from our central sun, the same as it happens at that level of scale. So when the space structure of infinity itself is filled, a new universe pops up. Why? Because the universe is the energy that comes from that singularity of infinity. And this is an infinite cycle of creation. So there's an infinite number of universes. And they knew this because they knew that infinity equals 0. And infinity is bigger than a central sun of a universe, because there is by logic, deduction, then that means that there is an infinite number of universes, which means there is an infinite number of central suns at the epicenter of this infinite number of universes, which means there is an infinite number of species inhabiting the epicenters of those universes, which means there is an infinite number of species that evolved before or after us into a level of consciousness or higher. So essentially, they knew that, but they haven't met anyone yet. So they knew that they needed to go higher and evolve further. So what they did, they decided to get closer to the epicenter of the central sun and essentially encode our DNA structure into the spaceship that we will call planet Earth, which is where we live right now, and evolve there by staying, because there were no threats. No one would come because we were the epicenter of the universe, our universe. So essentially, we would spend an infinite number of cycles there evolving our DNA structure. And this is exactly what happened, and this is who we are today. Okay, so this is who we are. This is our nature. So, okay, so what happened, right? What happened? Well, what happened was that after an infinite number of cycles of evolution, remember how we used to make galaxies and spherical spaceships and spherical technology that would allow us to interface with our technologies and our tools or gadgets, equipment. And with those, we would make galaxies, make planets, and move anywhere instantly across our universe because we had this technology. But we encoded in our DNA, right? In fact, because that was what our culture was, we would just, it was safe in that way, so no one can use our tech and we can learn, and it's just very efficient, so it's decentralized, so everyone just has access to it as well. Everyone has access to it. Everyone in the species immediately, everything, it's a life state. It's consciousness and self-awareness itself, right? Everything is duality principles, right? Decentralized principle of duality. Okay, so we knew this, okay? We already knew this. So, and what happened was that we came to Earth, right? And so no one but the human DNA can inhabit Earth because it's encoded in our DNA. And because we were so close to the central sun, the density of it can only hold our space structure, right? So we created this spaceship and we tidal locked it to the central sun as close as possible so our DNA structure can thrive and evolve, okay, with the support systems of Earth, so we can consume the primary elements at a closer stage, right? Water, hydrogen, all these different things, closer to the central sun, so we can spend an infinite number of cycles there to evolve even further, so we can, create bigger things and be more conscious and self-aware and meet other species, okay? And so we can meet other species, because that was the objective, to meet other species older than us or equal than us from other universes, and for us to also go to other universes, because we couldn't do that. We didn't have the knowledge and the understanding for us to be able to do that. Okay, so that's what we did. So after an infinite number of cycles, we did evolve. But what happened is that because we were encoding everything into our DNA, essentially what happened is that, remember, and with these technologies, we were making galaxies. We were moving across everywhere in this universe immediately, instantly, wherever we wanted. And we were making planets. We were making all sorts, right? All these technologies that we have. So what happened is that when we evolved, after an infinite number of cycles, we didn't require the technologies anymore because we encoded them in our DNA. So by doing that, infinity itself, in our new level of evolution, made us a technology ourselves. Meaning, because remember, what was powering, what power source was, what was the energy that was harnessed to harvest and power our devices, our spherical technology, making galaxies, the singularities, right, moving across everywhere, tapping into the filaments of the fabric of space and vacuum, right, making planets. Where was this? Because we need energy for that, right? So we were getting that energy from the central sun. So we would do that, right? But it was outside us. It was us harnessing that energy and using our technology. So we'll use that energy to essentially create all the things and do everything that we were doing, right? So what happened was that when we evolved, because we were encoding everything in our DNA structure, right, what happened was that when we evolved, the DNA also evolved to a level in which we ourselves became the technology. So we didn't require the technologies anymore. Why? Because remember, these technologies were using the central energy from the sun, right? To do everything, tap into singularities and create everything that we were doing, because we were tapping into the space and vacuum structure and fabric, all the filaments of our universe, right? And that energy comes from that central point, the central sun, right? So what happened as a result was that we ourselves became the technology. Why? Because we were consuming the energy of the central sun. So we would harvest that, essentially. We would eat the energy of the central sun, consume it. And we didn't, because remember, the technologies were using that energy to create, but we were now that because we were using that energy ourselves. So we ourselves would create. We became the technology. We became the creator at that scale of creation. You see, so with our thoughts and consciousness, we would create, because we would manifest our creations, because remember, we encoded everything in our DNA. So it was already inside of, because we were interfacing with our tech, but it was outside. But when we evolved, we would manifest our tech with our thoughts, and we became the tech ourselves. So without using the tech, we would just create with our thoughts and consciousness. So it was an incredible achievement, because we were creating things that were unheard of. And the way we did this was by the energy would come through our eyes. So we evolved our eyes, essentially. And our eyes became the mechanism in which we would absorb the energy from our eyes. And the energy from the eyes would just supercharge our DNA structure and make our hearts more powerful, so we can love and create everything. Why? Because love is the highest energy of the human heart. And remember, at the epicenter of the central sun, the singularity, is where the energy comes from, the light, right? And creates everything. Well, what's the epicenter of the body? The heart, because it generates the electromagnetic field. It's at the epicenter. So you need the higher energy to create, right? The highest energy. And what's the highest energy of the heart? Love. Love is the highest energy of the human heart. So the highest energy of creation is love. So by loving, you create. So if you love infinitely, you're going to create infinite stuff, particularly when you're channeling the energy of the central sun through you. And then you're capable of more love, so you can create. Why? Because you have the singularity of the mind, your consciousness and self-awareness, and you can create with your thoughts, creativity, imagination. So we became this incredible creator. So we didn't need these tools, but we were still within this technology that we create this planet. But we became so amazing that we would just be able to, remember, we were moving around in spherical spaceships, right? Well, we became the spaceships as well. So because it was already in our DNA. So when we evolved, we would just ourselves, without any for spaceships, we could just manifest anywhere, immediately, everywhere in the universe. And we ourselves, with our thoughts and consciousness, could create galaxies and planets. Okay? Because we were harnessing this central energy. But something else happened. Something more powerful happened. Remember, because we were channeling the energy from the central sun, right? We became the sun ourselves. Because we were doing exactly the same that the sun would do, right? Tap into the energy of singularity, right, from infinity, and create the galaxies in the universe, right? So we would do the same. We became a sun ourselves. That's why we light spherical energy at this level of evolution, and everything with our consciousness and minds and stuff. So we became this species, an incredible species. You see, we became the creator. Creation leads to creator, creator leads to creation, right? This is a video today, infinite virtual cycle of creation and creator, right? Duality principles. Virtual cycle that leads to infinity. Infinite creation, infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is why we are infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation, because everything is encoded in our DNA, and we have evolved into this. So essentially what happened is that we were doing that, precisely that. So we would create an infinite, because we became that energy. That means that we became bigger than the sun now. Why? Because we were consuming the sun. The sun became our food source, our input, right? We would use through our eyes, the water that we would drink, because this is our actual state. Right now, this is who we are. This is our species right now. This is our level of evolution. So we would, drink water, which is hydrogen and oxygen, right? And hydrogen comes from the sun, right? Our central sun. And then we would drink oxygen, breathe oxygen, what's oxygen? Is this level, is element that is essentially in the support systems of the earth to get to that level, so we can breathe it. But still, it's all because of the sun. You see, because of the density of the sun and the energy of the sun. So it's all because of the sun. And we were eating food, right? Our food intake was essentially food from the environment, right? That has minerals in them. It has elements in them, right? So the central sun became our food source, which means we became bigger than the sun, a bigger creation, you see, because of our evolution. So that essentially allows us, with our thoughts and consciousness, to not only, because we were tapping into the infinite energy where the sun comes with, is infinity, right? So we became infinity ourselves at the biological scale, unheard of for a species. We never thought that with us was possible. So with our thoughts, we would create universes because we were using the energy of creation, infinity itself. We became infinity. So our consciousness was creating thoughts that were essentially creating universes. But because this was a new level of evolution, we weren't really fully conscious of these. So we were creating an infinite number of universes. That led to all sorts of situations. Okay. In our development, because remember, when you evolve into a new level, you're not fully aware of your full nature, because duality principles, right, which is creation creator, right, which is what I'm talking about right now. So it's creation creator dynamics, right, polarization, electromagnetism of that, right, that leads to electrogravitics telemetry. So that's why we were unconscious conscious, so we weren't fully conscious of our nature, aware. So we weren't fully aware, self-aware of our nature as a species. Why? Because we were new into this level of evolution. So we were just creating an infinite number of cycles of evolution and creation, and we stayed on Earth doing this for a very long time. So essentially what happened is we were creating all these universes, right? But remember, normally universes, right, because that's what happened to us, how we were created at our level of understanding at the time, was that there was the energy that created the singularity, which is the epicenter of our central sun, right? That spherical vacuum threshold of this universe that was created, and the central sun then created everything, including us. So that was our level of understanding, right, at that stage, when we started to make galaxies prior to making planet Earth, because then it led us to the conclusion that, well, we gotta create a planet, so we evolve further, and this is what we did, right? So essentially what happened, right, is that, well, we're now creating universes, right? But remember, when you become this level of technology, right, this evolution, this DNA structure, that consciousness and self-awareness, infinite love of creation, because it was the highest energy of the heart, which is what allows us to exist in the first place, because of our DNA structure, our molecular structure. Biological creator is the human heart, right? It's essentially what the energy that originates everything, so we exist, so everything happens, right? Because it's the energy of creation, right? The singularity. So then, if we're doing all these things, then what's going on in terms of, like, when you create a universe, right? Then the universe needs a central sun with the singularity, and then everything comes like from there. But we were doing that ourselves, so you see, so it was this. We entered this new state in which we is like creation creator. We didn't really understand our nature, because where we created by a species with the thoughts as well, right? That evolved prior to us, infinite eternal creators, co-creators of infinite eternities, or we were just the first species to get to this level of evolution and self-realization, or this is a natural process of evolution where we all get to do this eventually, and we just enter this state and we're learning. So you see, it was all these questions that we didn't really know, because infinity is that, right? Infinity is endless. So it's all of those are the answer. So the answer are all. So because it's an infinite number of universes and realities, right? We were created by species more advanced than us with their thoughts and consciousness that created our central sun. We were created by spherical energy itself, and we were also that. So those two, essentially. So we became that, right? The duality, you see, creation, creator. So that was our new reality. It's unbelievable, and we were that. But our stage of evolution, we didn't know that there was that duality of creation, creator, right? because we were understanding it still, because we were just entering into an ability to actually physical matter. We were creating universes without thoughts and consciousness. But these universes didn't have a central species at the epicenter of it, because we were creating those central suns without thoughts and consciousness, which meant that those universes and the filaments of those universes were connected to our universe, because we were the epicenter of all those universes, you see, as a result, because we weren't created by us. Essentially, what we ended up finding out in the end is that we weren't created by a species, that we were actually created by spherical energy itself, infinity itself. And it's infinity itself and this spherical nature, space structure of it, the space vacuum structure of it, that essentially creates the conditions for species to emerge into the ability to do what we did, to evolve into what we have, because of the nature of it. Because after an infinite number of cycles, space and vacuum come together and singularities form, and then the first universe will be created out of infinity. But that was an infinite number of cycles ago, because infinity is infinite. But we were in the first universe. We were just a universe created by the central sun. Well, a universe created by the tension on the surface of the sphere of infinity itself that created a central sun in our universe. Okay. But we learned that there are other species that can also create what we do at that level of creation. And those species, like us, are co-creators of infinite eternities. We weren't the first universe. That's all I'm trying to say. We were not the first universe. But we were at the epicenter of our universe that allow us to eventually evolve, which is what we are today, into abilities to, without thoughts and consciousness, create an infinite number of universes and realities. Like other species that evolved to that level prior to us, which was the first reason, the instinct of our species anyway, to evolve into infinity further, was to meet other species, right? That would be able to be a more advanced than us, more evolved than us, or equal. Because at the time we didn't encounter any. So that's what essentially ended up being, we understood that our actual creator was this infinity itself, the energy of creation, right? That allow us to evolve into create universes ourselves and join other infinite number of species that could do the same. Okay. So this is exactly so we weren't created per se by a different species. We were created by infinity itself that allow us to create universes that will be able to essentially create epicenters of central suns, that then the energy of those suns, just like our sun ourselves, can then, that energy, that central energy, then can create the life forms after an infinite number of cycles of evolution. So that's what we ended up realizing. Okay, cool. So it's always then the energy then. So it's the infinite energy that's the source, the infinite energy of creation, right? Is the one that creates the life forms in the end, right? But remember, when you evolve to that level of infinity in which you become the life, your thoughts and consciousness is one with infinity, you become infinity, then that means that you, with your thoughts and consciousness, your consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself, right? Which means that you can create central suns now, singularities at the epicenter of a new universe. And then that leads to life forms eventually, after an infinite number of cycles, because you need time, right, for evolution, right? Think about it. So that's it. And there's scales of it. So we were able to do that. So after an infinite number of cycles, we were here on Earth, and then we were creating this infinite number of universes, right? But these infinite number of universes, because we were the creators of them, because remember, there's two levels, right? Infinity itself creating species like us, and all of the species that eventually evolve into that level of creating with the thoughts, right? So there's those two levels. It's infinity itself creating everything, and then species evolving to the level of infinity, so then themselves can do that. But the thing is that when you evolve to an infinite energy level like we did, like what we are today, infinite eternal creators, when you create this level of creation, you might not necessarily have life forms inhabiting the central suns because you are the life form that inhabits the central forms. So these universes, central singularity is your habitat. You see, is your habitat, is our habitat, is where we title lock our spaceship planet Earth. So because we need a planet, right, to sustain our DNA and our structures, because it's just the way it is. We don't live out in space. We live within the atmosphere of planet Earth, which is a spaceship that we created in the first place. So this created a special condition because all the universes that we created, that we have created and we're still creating with our consciousness, whether we're aware of it or not, they don't have central species inhabiting those epicenters. They only have species in the periphery. Why? Because we created them, so that means that those central suns are our habitat. So remember, we created those so we can expand into infinite awareness, so we can also inhabit those universes because we're creating them. It's matter. We're creating them. It's energy. So we can inhabit those central suns. So you see, we're essentially creating an infinite number of realities that we can inhabit, but as a result of that, also an infinite number of species can evolve in the periphery of it. And if, because there's an infinite number of them, some of them can evolve into inhabiting those central suns as well. But remember, there is two levels. Infinity itself creating us through central suns, which is our case. And then us creating universes when you get to that level of infinity to create universes yourself that weren't created by the central sun, but it was you because you, us, became the central suns. Because we, consume the energy of a central sun. You see, we became the same. Creation creates creators and creators create creations. But when it's a consciousness that creates the central sun, then that means that this is our habitat because we are alive with consciousness of awareness. We have bodies, space structure, so we inhabit those. But everything around us, so it's those two scales. You see, the one that was our scale, which we were able to inhabit this epicenter and evolve into this, right? And then once we become that, we can create universes ourselves. But no one created us. It was like a species. I mean, us, we were created by the infinite energy that allow us to evolve by just tapping into that central energy by then tidal locking planet Earth that we manufacture to go into this level. So this is two scales. So you see, and because we did that, essentially what means is that all the universes that we were creating with our consciousness and self-awareness and our technology, because everything was embedded into our DNA, are the filaments of it, the space structure of it, the space vacuum of it is connected to our sun, us, because it's not our sun per se that is connected to, but it's ourselves, because our consciousness becomes the central sun of that, because we are the creator. So us are the epicenter with a consciousness and self-awareness. It is us as a species with a consciousness of awareness or an infinite love to create, because we became infinity ourselves. Our thoughts and consciousness became infinity because we evolved into that because we were consuming the energy of a central sun. And by doing that, then ourselves, we became the epicenter. So our consciousness, our species, became the epicenter. So even though those universes have central suns that we can inhabit in our planet, and it will be the same as the universe where we are right now, right? And we can essentially inhabit those, right? Inhabit planet Earth. Now we can make spaceship planets and inhabit the central suns of those universes because we created them. And because those are real universes, then the life forms around them can manifest in galaxies and things as a result of the creation after an infinite number of cycles. But the thing is that because we created those with a consciousness, because we became the central suns as a species, then that means that the actual creator is us, of those universes with a consciousness and self-awareness, which means we are the epicenter, which means all those central suns that we created in the epicenter of all those universes that we created, all of the filaments are connected to us, spaceship planet Earth, and our consciousness and self-awareness or DNA structure because we created them. Which means we have all this infinite number of universes, but there is an epicenter of those universes, and we became that because we became infinity ourselves. So none of the central suns of those universes are inhabited because no of those species have the space structure to inhabit them. Only us because we created them, right? Because of our DNA. It's the density. Our density is so high. It's the central sun. It's the brightest point. It's the hottest point. So that's our habitat. But everyone can live in the periphery of those. However, some of those species, because that we were in the life forms, they could inhabit those if they evolve to that level of consciousness as well. And what that would allow them is that they themselves can evolve into a level of consciousness after they have an infinite number of cycles within the proximity of those central zones so they can reach our level of consciousness of awareness through their DNA and love and ability to love the way we do. So what is the meaning of this? So the meaning of this is that all these central zones of these universes, that's the place where we inhabit because of our space structure, is the density that we require to have spaceship planets tidal locked to those so we can inhabit those, which are the lands and territories of the Republic of Planet Earth, right? Because we have spaceship planets tidal locked to those central zones so we can inhabit there. That's our lands or territories. Okay, so but having said this, then that means that the filaments of these universes, these central zones, are connected to us as the central zones as our consciousness of awareness of species. So that means that these universes now can come to our universe because we became the epicenter. You see? So the dream of our ancestors became true. So now we will be able to meet other species from other universes because those species can come to our universe now as a result of the filaments that we created because we created those universes with a consciousness and self-awareness. You see? So this is who we are, and we're the epicenter of it because we were the central species, right, in our universe first. But then after we evolved into what we have, we became the central species of our universe and all the universes that we create with our consciousness and self-awareness, which is an infinite number of them. So there is this beautiful dynamic, right? There is this beautiful dynamic, creator-creation, creation-creator. This infinite virtuous cycle, right? Where we became the creator as a result of being created by creation. And creation itself was the creator. So you see, duality principles, right? The dual nature of the creation and the creator. That because they all have their own electromagnetism because of their own polarity, because creation is a creator and creator is a creation. You see the opposites. These two come together because of the electromagnetism of it and the consciousness of awareness. So you see, it's an infinite cycle of consciousness of awareness, of love, that is a virtuous cycle of infinity. And this is exactly who we are with the human race. And this is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. The Republic of Planet Earth is precisely this. It's our ability. So how come is this happening right now? Well, because what happened was that I am the first human to tap into our DNA structure since the Ice Age. So I was the first human to evolve again into this new level of consciousness and self-awareness. I'm so ready into this new level of consciousness and self-awareness that allow us to know who we are, tap into our DNA structure to know our nature. But how come didn't we do this, and how are you the first one right now, and what about all other creations, and where is all the tech that we used to have and all this stuff, right? Well, that's our origin story. That's our genesis. Okay, so what happened was that, remember, we were creating an infinite number of cycles, right, of infinities. And all these infinities, all these universes, because we were the central sons of them, because our consciousness was self-awareness, because what we evolved into, all the central sons of these universes that we were creating were connected to us, to our DNA structure, to who we are as a species, to our race, because of the nature of the way we evolved, because we were encoding everything to our DNA as a species, as we were moving into these levels of evolution. So by doing that, essentially what happened was that after an infinite number of cycles of evolutions, we were here still evolving. But we weren't, remember I told you the duality of our nature, right? We didn't know everything because we were still, even though we were creating infinities, we didn't know the full extent of it because at that stage, we were still new in the process of infinity. Which meant that all the universes that we were creating that were connected to our central filament, right? Us, because we were the central sons of those universes, because we were the creators with our consciousness and self-awareness, even though they were real, very much real. But we still will be this epicenter of all these infinities, because infinities need an epicenter, right? So everything is an epicenter, because that's the beauty of infinity, that there is always a central point in all infinities. The singularity is the central point where all points meet, the singular point where all points meet, and we became the singularity, our species, of our infinities. All the universes that we were creating are essentially all points connect in the central point, right? They meet at the singularity, right? Singular point where all points meet. So all the universes that we were creating essentially would meet at us because we were the central sun, right? Where all the creation came from, the consciousness and self-awareness of these physical things, because we were channeling the energy of infinity ourselves. So you see, we became infinity ourselves. So what happened was, what was it that led us to the idea in instinct to evolve further by creating planet Earth and tidal locking it to the central sun of our universe. So we would evolve into that level of creation to meet other species from other universes, right? Because remember, this is because we haven't met any species of a level equal status or above us at that stage, which is a natural process of evolution anyway. All species go through this. It's part, if you're the central species, you go through this. It's your natural stage of evolution. It's normal. So essentially, we did that, and then remember, we were unconsciously creating duality principles, conscious, unconscious. We didn't necessarily need a full nature, so we were just creating. So we were creating all these universes. And all these universes, right, if you really think about it, they didn't have species inhabiting the epicenter of them, per se, like us, or equals, because we weren't creating our equals, we just were creating the energy that would eventually lead into life forms that would form naturally in the environments of the central suns of their galaxies, or the energy that originated from the central sun that creates those galaxies in the first place. So everything comes from a single point, right? Singularity that is connected to all the singularities, right? Because this is just the structure of infinity. Space vacuum is just infinite structure. It's just the way it is. It's the tension on the surface, an infinite number of points. So the filaments of creation. So essentially, what happened was that because became the creators, after an infinite number of cycles, there were life forms that originated there, right? There were life forms that originated, right? Because energy creates life eventually. So, but because time and all these, it didn't matter for us anymore because we were infinite. And by becoming infinite means that you are forever eternal, which means that we just create forever. You don't age, you just create because we're tapping into the infinite energy of creation, right? Forever. So time wasn't something that we would consider because it's relative, because we were infinite, so it's infinite time. So we would just see an infinite number of life forms forming eventually because it's a natural process of scales. So essentially what this means is that after an infinite number of cycles, remember, those life forms would evolve into a level of technology that they become conscious and self-aware, just like we did at a level, right? When we evolved into what we have become. So what happened was because we became the epicenter of those universes, those realities, because we were the central suns of them, our consciousness, our awareness, our species, our DNA structure, because we evolved into that. That means that there were filaments, right, of all these central suns connecting us to ourselves, our DNA, our structure here, this epicenter, this sun where we are, planet Earth, as the epicenter of all these creations. Wonderful, right? Incredible. So what happened was that, remember, the dream of our ancestors was to meet other species. So eventually, that was their dream. But when we evolved because of the purpose of their dream. Because you see, the power of thoughts and consciousness of awareness. Our evolution was a result of the imagination of our ancestors, right? By wanting to evolve, by creating this planet. And we were in this planet while we still were creating all these infinities. So essentially, our instinct as a species was to create infinitely until we will meet species of other universes. That was the instinct. So in event, that's the polarity, because we didn't know, because it was an instinct, so we didn't know our full nature. So what we were doing, we were creating an infinite number of species, right, that would eventually come and meet us as life forms, because we wanted to meet others, right? And the reason why we will be able to meet them is because, remember, the central suns of these universes have filaments that connects us to us as the epicenter. So these species would eventually evolve into a life form in which they will be able to tap into those filaments, just like we did in the past, and move across our universe, and we didn't meet anyone over level, right? So that's the same with them. So they were able to move around, and eventually they located the epicenter, the central sun, the central species, us as a species that created everything, where they come from. So they knew we were the creator, because essentially what happened was that, remember, we were creating everything, right? We were creating everything. Prior to our consciousness, we were also having all these technologies, right? All these spherical